Hi guys, welcome back to my journey into airsoft shell-fed revolvers. Now we've looked at the Chiappa Rhinos, but thanks to the guys at Fire Sport, I bought it. They didn't send it to me. I picked up a Dan Wesson. Now I had, experience with the Dan Wessons years ago, but not with the 715. So I wanted a 4-inch. I would have liked it if they did a version that was painted and not plated. If anyone is watching out there that can help me deplate this, because I want to change the colour, but when using Cerakote with parts that are plated, it's very difficult to remove it with the sandblaster. I've tried it for a various few people at full, disclaimer risk of this might not work. Shout out to Flo, who sent me a revolver, and we just couldn't get it to strip properly, and it was quite badly corroded anyway. But decided to pick up some 715. They only had the 4-inch in the chrome finish, and it came like this. It came with a CO2 bulb installed, it just with a note just saying take care, which is nice from them because I imagine they tested it. And here is the 715. Now the only thing you won't see is there was a sticker here that said 1.6 joules or whatever, which would insinuate that it comes with high power shells. So I just took that off and then rubbed it with some isopropyl alcohol, which the finish finally did clean up a little bit, but it did look like it scratched. So you get the revolver in the box, you get an Allen key for adjusting the hop on the top, you get a speed loader, and I think that's pretty much it. So very basic packaging. You do get a manual as well. Goes over the basic functions of the revolver, how to use the speed loader, how to install the CO2, and how to adjust the hop up, which way to turn it for what you need, and how to adjust the rear sight. And it's got a thing on the back for the accessories, which we're not too bothered about. I would like to try a bunch of different shells if you guys can help me out with that. So here is the Dan Wesson 715, and straight away it does feel heavier. Let's take I'll probably compare it to the 40 because they're a similar size. The 30 is smaller. So I'll have a look here. So this does have the shells, and they both do. This has a CO2 capsule in where the 40 doesn't. 1.149 kilos, and the Chiappa 1.020 kilos. So there's what, 1.020, 1.150. So there's 130 grams in it. Might have got that wrong. Don't criticise too much if I did. So the Dan Wesson. Now, what I really do love about this second generation of revolvers from ASG, Wingun, Dan Wesson, blah blah blah, is the old Dan Wessons had this grip at the back which wasn't super nice to hold, and you had to pull the back off, and it was like a cheap plastic, and I never liked that about the Dan Wesson. But in the second iteration with the 715, they changed it, so they went to a Hogue style grip, which is phenomenal to hold. It really is the most one of the most comfortable grips I've ever felt. And they've also changed it so it's much like the Chiappas. You pull it off the side. Now, what I do like about the 715 over the Chiappa is they both have a tool included, so you can remove and install the CO2. But what I like about this is they've used a metal frame and then over molded the frame with rubber, and this does make a really superb grip. Now, instead of being on the back here where it's accessible to drop the cylinder, chamber, whatever you want to call it, I'm not going to get into that because people have criticised me before talking about revolvers. I don't know the lingo, don't ever claim to be an expert. I'm just saying it as I see it. This to me is a cylinder shape, so I might call it the cylinder, might be called the chamber. There's your warning. After that, I don't care. So we have the 6 shells already loaded into the revolver. Let's take these out here. And you'll see they've got a roughly 4mm throughput hole all the way through. So these are high-powered shells. They literally are, apart from the markings on the back where it says Dan Wesson, where the Chiappas have like a C, the shell is identical. If we remove this, we can even see the little section there where the Chiappa has the little brass insert. So they're the same shell, just slightly different. The colouring might be a little bit different as well on the tips. Let's take one out and show you. If you do hear a cat crying in the background, it's low-key, try to ignore him. There's a slightest of colour difference between the two tips on the shells, but you'll see you've got Dan Wesson on the back and a C. And problem with running shells, pop these back in here. So they will be, you know, cross compatible, which is the main key. Now, this does have a CO2 capsule installed, so we're going to give it a go on the Chrono. So let's get the shells ready. I'm going to try it with the Dan Wesson shells, and I'm going to try it with the Chiappa shells. Now, I know this video is about the 715, and the Chiappas are sort of in the frame as well, but I think it's relevant, so we're going to talk about it. So we're going to take some 0.3 gram BBs. I'm going to try and film this in a way that I don't have to edit it, just so it's raw for you guys, because you seem to like that. And we just take a BB and we place it in the front there. Now, a trick that I used to do in my old Dan Wessons was I used to drop the BBs in the actual speed loader like that, because I used to have a lot of shells for my original 2.5 inch Dan Wesson. So I used to drop the BBs in like that, and then I used to press the shells in and flip them over like that. You'll feel it drop in, and I used to just drop six BBs in. I used to push the shells down, flip them over, and that's how I used to load it. And having to do these manually at the time because we didn't have moon clips, that was how I got around it. And then I used to carry a bunch of these. So we've got the 6 rounds in the Dan Wesson shells. I'm going to pop the Chiappa shells out so we can show the power difference. Now, I don't know how full this CO2 cartridge is because it literally just came installed from fire support. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. What I might do is I might laser etch all these shells so it's a little bit easier, because I don't really want to be looking at the back. I might just put like low power or high power or whatever like that. So let's get to it. We've got the Chrono. We've got a crappy catch box set to 0.3 gram BBs because that's what I'll run. I won't run anything lighter than that. We take our thing. So if you didn't watch as I was doing that, what you do is you pop the shells in backwards into your speed loader. You push this all the way up to the top till it stops, twist it till it clicks, and that's what holds your shells in. And then when you advance that into the back of the cylinder or chamber or whatever you want to call it, it pops the shells in. Now we have a safety that's locked on the back here, which was locked like that from shipping, and we have single action and double action on this. So the first 3 shots are going to be single action, so we cock the hammer, smoother than the Chiappa one. What I will say is this gun, I don't know if it's to do with the shells, is considerably louder than the Chiappa. So the first shot is 1.02 joules. Shot number 2, 0.899. This might not be a full cylinder. 0.82. 0.853. Let's do some double action. 0.984. 0.962. So there's a bit of inconsistency there. When I first took it out of the box just to check everything was working, which is what I always do, I was getting about 1.2 joules. So we'll take the Dan Wesson shells out. My ears are ringing, which I never got with the Chiappa. We'll put the Chiappa shells in. This is a little bit easier to load by hand compared to the Chiappa. It's a bit less bulky. So Chiappa shells, let's give it a go, see what we get. So 1.096 joules, 0.987, 1.024, and we'll do some double action now. 1.1. I didn't get that one. 1.112. So You know, it's a little bit inconsistent. My ears are ringing right now. I'm sorry if that was loud for you headphone users out there. So there we have it. Not really much difference, which is very, very strange, isn't it? Because this one does have a restrictor in there. Now, what would be interesting in the interest of finding out, let's take the 40DS. Let's get a CO2 capsule. This is a Umex branded one. So we put that in there like that. Got a tool in the grip. Like so. We'll just check, give it a function check. Yeah, it's not really like as, it's loud, but it's not like, it's like the pitch in this is really like sharp, where the Chiappa isn't. So, I'm going to do my little trick again so we can load it a little bit faster. F6, and we basically go. I'm sure many of you out there have done this before. It was just something that I picked up on years ago when I picked up a Dan Wesson for the first time, dropping shells everywhere. It's the only problem with running shells, they're very, especially if your dexterity is like mine. Right, this might work, this might not work for the Chiappa Rhino. I'm imagining not, because the space on the cylinder is different, which yes, there it is. However, it will still work. So we have Dan Wesson shells in the Chiappa Rhino. So these are high-powered shells. Let's zero that out so we don't confuse the results. So 0.3s, and here we go. 0.74. 0.063, okay, 1.3, no total on there, no total on there again, and it can't even read it. So yeah, very inconsistent on the Dan Wesson shells. Again, new gun, haven't shot it before, many things could be playing a part in that. What I did find was when I was making the little magazines for the Chiappa, which was weird, was that, I don't know if it's because they're entirely made out of plastic, I was getting more consistency out of those than the actual proper shells that come with it. So we're now going to switch over to the Chiappa shells. I'm going to load 6 rounds up of the Chiappa Rhino branded shells. They do have the restrictor valve in, and we'll see if we can get some chrono results on this thing. So 0.8 joules, 0.9 joules, so far so good, 0.87 joules, 0.84 joules, nothing on that one, 0.85 joules, I think we're empty. Yeah. So a lot more consistent on the Chiappa shells. And just because I know a lot of you are going to be asking the question, again, I haven't tried this magazine in the 40DS yet. Only tried it in the 30. It's weird because the 30 seemed to have slightly more power. It really was around the joule mark. Compared to the 40, so this will slide straight in like so, and we'll give it a go. So 1 joule, no results. 1 joule, there's a 0.001 joule difference between those two shots. Again, it's playing up. I think I might be hitting the top of the chrono. Just under a joule at 0.93. And 0.93 again. In fact, that might not have fired anything. So, yeah, a little bit higher on that. Again, we can adjust this file to make it get the power set exactly where we want it, but it's nice to know that the Chiappas don't come overpowered. Now this did, and going ahead of time, I actually managed to find one person who shares the STL for something very similar. Now this is very much similar to what I did for the Chiappa, and this does not fit the Chiappa. They're not compatible whatsoever. The spacing in the cylinders is different. But instead of going through that whole rigmarole trying to design that again for this, I found someone on the internet that had already done it. So we can give this a go. And the gentleman that does these does different sizes in the throughputs as well, so you can change the power. Let's give it a go and see what we get in the Dan Wesson. Oh, quite a bit harder to push them in. They don't click in all the way. Oh yeah, that one doesn't go. You'll see how they're not one sticking out. I can't push it down any further. So I might take my shell design, because I have that in a step file, and maybe try and do something in a similar format to this. Maybe obviously do it a little different way. So we'll pop this in here. Let's see if it does indeed work. We have the Dan Wesson 0.92 joules, 1.13, 1.05, 0.94, 1.03, 0.8, and we're empty. So yeah, it's in a small room like this, it's less enjoyable to shoot that constantly compared to the Chiappa, just because I don't know what's different in the pitch. I don't know if it's to do with the cylinder or the barrel, or if there's air escaping. Really don't know. But yeah, it's much nastier on the ears compared to the Chiappa Rhino. So there we have it. I'm not going to go through all the ins and outs that people have probably done to death over the years. Here's your iron sights, here's how to adjust them. I ain't going to tell you guys how to suck eggs. It's a revolver. You pop the cylinder open, you put a shell in, you pull the hammer back for single action, or you do double action, and it's like that. So just off my first impressions of these products, the Dan Wesson wins in the category of grip and how it feels. The construction of it as well does feel a little bit better. There's a little bit of play in the barrel to the receiver. The Rhino has the same slight play. The grip isn't as intuitive as this. I think this could probably be thinned down a little bit. And maybe Thor, if you're listening, I know I called you out in the last one. I want that grip on this. Make it happen. He knows what I'm talking about. So both revolvers you can decock manually if you want to. I think the cylinder release on the Chiappa is a little bit more intuitive, because what I can do is I can do that one-handed. Pop that, have my second hand coming up, eject the cartridge, put a new one in, pop that back up with my left hand. If I can push it in all the way. With the Dan Wesson, I can't do that. I can't do anything one-handed unless I take my hand off the fire controls, and then I can do it like so. So with the Dan Wesson, it doesn't make sense to do it that way. You'd have to come up with your offhand, pop that open, pop your shells in, close it up, and away you go. I think with these revolvers, if you're not using shells with moon clips, this style of, you know, feed for the revolvers is a must. Now, I'm not sure whether I'm going to just print these and make them available to you guys, or, I mean, giving the files away is just something in the back of my mind. I don't like doing that because there's a lot of time. You know, if you've got very basic skills with CAD, you could very easily make this. I did this in a day. Sorry, I did the shell in a day, and then I did this the following day. It doesn't take a lot of skill to do something like this. There's people out there that have probably done it. This is my version. I'll be doing 2 versions of it, so I'll have the single shot and the 5 multi-shot. on the premise that if you're using the multi-shot, you really do need to take your hot rubber out. It will be interesting to get some results with these to see what the scatter's like on the 5-shot compared to the single shot. But I think for me, running the Chiappa, because I do plan to run the Chiappa, I'm going to print a ton of these and run them in my kit, because, you know, let's face it, if one disappears in the woods, I can just hit print and make another one. Now, I know it's not like that for everyone, but I mean, I dread to think, I think when I totaled it all up in my cart, so there was a pack of 6 shells, which I think was $26. So $26, then you had to buy the moon clip, which is like another few dollars. So you're talking $30 to get it over in Asia for a 6-shot like that. So you thought $30, and that's before shipping. So you're talking, and import. So you're talking anywhere between $40 and $50 for that, but just in metal shells. I could if you guys want me to, I could very much order that stuff in and test it. So yeah, there's obviously more, I think, in terms of offer for the Dan Wessons, although everyone seems to be out of stock at the moment. Just to wrap this video up, any questions you have on any of this stuff, lay it down in the comments below and I'll do a video on it, because trying to find videos on CO2 revolvers on the internet to touch on specific subjects is just very difficult. Trying to find information on the Umarex, you know, Wingun revolvers is almost impossible, because every time you search, you get the airgun stuff, so the 177 pellets, which we don't want that. So it's very difficult, which is why the next revolver that I'd ordered it because no one was answering the questions that I wanted, so I thought I'm going to find out myself. So it's getting a really long video. Apologies to everyone. I hope you've learned something here or took something away from the video. Let me know what you guys think down below of what you think on the 715 357 Magnum revolver from Dan Wesson. Very cool. Lots of rail space here to put your torches and stuff on there. I mean, it's a revolver, you probably wouldn't run it like that. Or are you more Chiappa fanboy? Now, one thing, just before I go, I'll probably touch on this in later videos, but just before I go, the one thing that I have noticed with this, even though I prefer the grip on the Dan Wesson, the barrel, so where you're firing the round from, is here. So look at that height where my grip is compared to with the Chiappa. So that's why the Chiappa is designed the way it is. It's to drop the bore axis. And what I will say is, when you're sort of holding this in your hand, it sits so low down in your grip. It's just a lot more satisfying to hold and manipulate it compared to the Dan Wesson, which is obviously, it's almost twice the height at the top of your hand. So thanks for tuning in. Wrap it up. As always from me and Bench, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.